I don't want to talk too soon, but we might have written off Lando Norris. The championship battle could still be on. Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. We just witnessed an incredible Mexican Grand Prix. We are here to talk about it. We've had a day. We've processed everything. Brandon, how you feeling?
Doing good. I don't know if I've fully processed everything, but here we are. It was an incredible race, and I'm excited to talk about it. So,
Yeah, there's been talk recently that Mexico is a boring track, not a lot of overtaking opportunities, but it has provided some bangers in recent memory. I always look forward to when we go to Mexico. Let's jump right into our reaction to this Grand Prix. What is your one sentence rundown from the Mexican Grand Prix?
my one sentence rundown. I don't know if you could call this a sentence, but
Maybe a run on. I'll give it like a run on sentence title, but you can call it that.
okay, yeah, run on sentence. We'll go with that. Amazing environment, amazing race. Truly everything was going on in this race. You had a battle for the lead. You had all kinds of stuff going on in the midfield. You had a crash at lap one, safety car. You had a battle for that has championship implications with multiple penalties handed out. There was a slight chance of rain in there. I don't think we could say that there was actually ever any rain, but that's about the only thing
Hey,
that this race is missing. So,
George said there was drops on his visor, so maybe there was even rain too. I don't know.
but then, but yeah, it was crazy and a lot of drama. All you could ever want from Formula One, truly.
Yeah, all we could ever want. And you forgot to mention this, a start time where we get to watch it where we don't have to wake up at 7 in the morning. So truly, I mean, what a day. Can't ask for much more as a Formula One fan. It truly did have absolutely everything. It had drama at the front of the field, drama at the middle of the pack, drama at the back of the pack with Sergio Perez driving around in 18th. I mean, just what a Grand Prix. Really, if anything, the only thing missing was the same thing missing from Austin, is the Ferraris just drove off, and we didn't really have a battle for the lead because the Ferrari just went off and walked away and had the easy win. Lando Norris gave us a fight for second place, but Carlos Sainz win was never in doubt. What a drive from him. My one sentence rundown, and this is when we start to get into the real nitty gritty of this stuff, is that it is time to say goodbye to Sergio Perez. I have defended him as much as I can. I have criticized him as much as I can. I'll admit it. I'm the first to say that Sergio Perez should have lost his seat, but when he did something good, we were quick to praise him. I have no more defense for him. I don't know what to say. Out in Q1 on Saturday, sure, maybe he had some brake issues. We'll never really know with that, but out in Q1, unacceptable. Had a great start to the Grand Prix. Oh, except he parked it about 3 yards outside of his grid box and got a penalty right off the bat. He forced drivers off the track. You could go either way if the Liam Lawson incident was his fault. I don't think that it was Liam's fault. I think it falls more on Sergio. The Lance Stroll incident surely was Sergio Perez's fault. Had a horrible race. Couldn't get fastest lap at the end, probably because of the damage. But man, at his home race, 2 years in a row, absolute duds. He's throwing dud after dud in Grand Prix weekends. I don't know what else to say about Sergio Perez, but surely this has to be it.
Yeah, looking on Instagram after the race, Sergio has this post, thank you, Mexico. I'm taking all of you in my car. It wasn't the weekend we wanted, but we're going to try again next year. And man, I don't know if we're going to try again next
Hey,
year.
you can try again next year in the Pirelli Hot Laps or the Masters Historic. They were there again this weekend, so maybe Sergio's got a spot there.
Maybe. I don't know. Jamie Constable is a really good driver, maybe even better than Sergio Perez. We'll see. Yeah, please don't hate me for that comment. But yeah, it's just I don't know what else to say, honestly, because he just can't seem to get it together, especially when it matters most. We'll talk about this more later, but Sergio's inability to score points this weekend once again cost Red Bull. He is the second driver to Max, and when Max has a tough weekend like he did this weekend, they need Sergio to be there just to scoop up something, and he got absolutely nothing. Instead, he was fighting with Liam Lawson, who finished in front of him. So, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Just doesn't seem that Sergio is fully aware of everything that is going on that he needs to be a part of, more towards the front of the field rather than the back of the field. So I don't know. Interesting stuff from him. I, we keep saying this, but man, I this time I truly got to believe that it's over for him.
Yeah, and I mean this we heard Christian Horner say slightly more negative things after the Grand Prix, saying that this is a performance-based sport, and that's kind of the first time that we've heard him flesh out the idea that they could have a different driver, and so I think that lends some credibility to the idea that this could be the end for Sergio Perez as well. There was almost this air in Sergio Perez this weekend that every single driver, steward, and marshal should just get out of the way and let him do whatever he wants because it's his home Grand Prix. That's what he sounded like on the radio. He was just frustrated with everything all weekend. And I know that you could get online and that it's that you see that he doesn't have the same car as Max. And he probably doesn't. He probably doesn't get the upgrades as soon as Max Verstappen does. He definitely has a different setup to Max Verstappen. That is true. You cannot convince me that that Red Bull that doesn't have Max's upgrades is as fast as a Sauber. So it doesn't matter if he doesn't have every single upgrade. He's still underperforming from where that Red Bull should be, and it just has become unacceptable at this point. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, and if this was any other driver in any other team, I think he would be, he'd be gone a long time ago. I mean, if you just look at the Daniel Ricciardo situation in McLaren, I feel like that was, I don't know, maybe similar, but Daniel was maybe underperforming a little bit, and he was gone. I don't think he was given a fair shake at McLaren, but he was obviously gone pretty quickly. They bought out the rest of his contract. They paid him not to be there, and Sergio is kind of getting the opposite treatment. And I totally agree with he seemed kind of very high and mighty this weekend. Like, saying that Liam was just an idiot. And I mean, I don't know what else Sergio expected other than the hardest racing that he was going to get all weekend from the guy who is driving to replace him at Red Bull. What did he expect? Did he expect Liam to just move out of the way and not go up the inside there? And I don't know. I don't know. That's crazy. But yeah, Sergio, I don't know. Maybe the other Mexican driver on track this weekend might have had a better weekend than him. That's a very crazy hot take. Pato Award in FP1, maybe a better weekend than Sergio Perez across the whole weekend. But anyway, that's enough hot takes about Sergio.
Yeah, I mean it's probably true. Pato probably did have a more enjoyable weekend than Sergio Perez. Yeah, I mean Liam got him back with some old New Zealand hospitality later in the Grand Prix when he was overtaking him, so he got him back there. Almost reminded me of Alex Albon in 2020 when he said that the AlphaTauris race him so hard. What do you expect? Those drivers want your seat, brother. Like it's what's going to happen. They're going to race you hard because you're underperforming and they want your seat. They want to make an impression. Liam Lawson has certainly made an impression on drivers and fans alike in his short time in Formula One. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. But it is time for our patented weekly championship recap. After the United States Grand Prix, we thought it was over. We thought there was no need for more weekly championship recaps. We didn't even do one last week. We had other things to talk about, but we're back. The championship is supposedly still on. There was 47 points between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. We have 4 races and 2 sprints left. That means Lando Norris needs to gain about 12 points per weekend to win the title. He gained 10 this week, which is a good amount, but this was probably the worst weekend you could expect from Max Verstappen, like ever. I mean, he was racing the Haas's. He had nothing else to do. He got penalties. Red Bull had a longer pit stop than they needed to after the penalties. I mean, this was as bad as it was going to get for Max Verstappen, and he couldn't get the points total that he needed. So technically, it's still on. But is it realistic to expect Lando Norris to win a championship this year?
I mean, I don't know if it's realistic to expect that Lando will win the championship this year, but it might be realistic to expect that he'll stay mathematically in the title fight maybe until the last race. I mean, it's possible if Lando's gaining 10 points this weekend, maybe he gains like 8, 6 the next few weekends. That might be enough to keep him in it at least. I don't know. But they certainly had quite the race this weekend, and next weekend we've got a sprint coming up, and then there's another sprint in Qatar. So there's more opportunities there, and it's definitely possible. But I'm cautious, very cautious in saying that it's realistic to expect Lando to actually legitimately put up a title fight without Max DNFing. Which is possible. So I don't know, especially if things continue to come to blows between the two of them, it could cause something that might cause Max to DNF. Um, so we'll see. That might also cause Lando to DNF, but I don't know. I don't know. It's possible. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw in Austria they came together and led to one of their DNFs and the other one to continue to extend their championship lead. So it is certainly possible that they could come together and see Lando Norris continue on with Max DNFing. Certainly, if he's going to keep making insane moves like he was this weekend, it is possible that Max Verstappen finds himself DNFing a race this year. Those moves were definitely over the line from Max Verstappen. The penalties probably deserved. You could make the argument that we saw 5 second penalties get handed out last week for overtaking off the track, and then we saw 10 second penalties given out this week for it. I think Max's penalties were more for forcing a driver off the track rather than overtaking off the track. I think Max Verstappen certainly deserved penalties for both moves. It's just another one of those things that it's unfortunate that stewarding is so inconsistent in Formula One that you see different time penalties given out for the same penalty, and sometimes it's just warning, sometimes it's not investigated. But the Max Verstappen penalties were deserved, they were given. It is what it is. I think we could see a situation where Lando Norris comes into the finale with a mathematical chance to win, but it's probably going to be like a 20-point gap. I mean, he's still going to need a miracle to win this title, but he's still in it, so we can't write him off. But if anything, the emergence of Ferrari has kind of hurt Lando Norris because if you think about this before the 4 week break, Lando Norris would have been walking away with these Grand Prix based on that McLaren pace, and he would be getting max amount of points on Max Verstappen. But here comes Ferrari, winning back-to-back races, scoring the most points of any constructor the past 2 weekends. They're only 29 points behind McLaren. Red Bull seems locked into third place, especially with Sergio Perez locked into last place. Should we trust Ferrari to be the one to come home with this constructors championship?
I mean, I want to say yes. Ferrari has looked fantastic the last 2 weekends. I mean, they were very nearly on for another 1-2. I think Charles' kind of strategy and tire wear really hurt him towards the end of the race. But I mean, yeah, Ferrari is doing really, really well. And I mean, honestly, 29 points isn't that big of a gap. I mean, that's one weekend, especially with 2 sprint weekends coming up. I mean, you get, I don't know, say next weekend in the sprint, Lando and Max come together again. Neither of them score points in the sprint. And you have the Ferrari boys finishing 1-2 again, or 1-3, or even like 2-4. I mean, it's like that could be another 15, 18 points. I mean, it's definitely possible. So it's just such a small gap that anything could happen at this point.
Yeah,
So
29 points is nothing in the Constructors' Championship, so it's certainly on. I have no idea what to expect going forward with Ferrari and McLaren. I mean, in my mind, I still want to think that McLaren is the fastest package because we saw them have the fastest package going into this break. And then Ferrari just comes out of nowhere, didn't even bring any upgrades to Austin, and have become this team that have looked good in qualifying and race situations. And so in my mind, it's like, are there any is Ferrari going to be the top team for the rest of the year and we should expect them to win the constructors championship? It's just I had truly have no idea what to expect going into these last 4 rounds and where the pecking order of these top two teams are.
yeah, I think also an interesting thing to think about is if you look at Lando's second stint, towards the end of the race, he was really flying when he overtook Charles. And, I think maybe that incident at the beginning of the race might have kind of masked the McLaren, or at least Lando's pace a little bit. I mean, given 5 more laps, 10 more laps, I think he very well could have overtaken Charles or Carlos. I mean, he finished only 5 seconds behind him at the flag. So I think McLaren's pace may be better than was advertised this weekend.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, Oscar couldn't even catch a Haas at the end of the race to get back up there. The Haas were holding their own. And then, surely Carlos had a little bit more in him. He was on the radio talking about wanting to lower the pace all Grand Prix. So surely he had more in him if he needed it. He truly was controlling that race at the end. That just, yeah, there's ifs and buts and maybes. We have no idea. Good thing we're in the midst of a triple header and we get to go racing in Brazil this weekend with 34 points on the line in both championships. So we will see what happens. That is awesome. But who knows what's going on in the midfield right now? Liam Lawson, Sergio Perez going at it, Hole and Sergio's side pod. Who knows what happened there? Liam Lawson and Franco Colapinto come together. Who knows what's going on there? Haas are scoring double points. Once again, Kevin Magnussen looks like the GOAT since he's come back from his suspension. Alpine scored points. Who knew that was possible in the year of our Lord 2024? Mercedes had like the same speed between their two cars. One of them was running a spec from 5 months ago. What is going on right now if you get outside the top six in Formula One?
I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, and I think the biggest thing for me that stands out is just another double points finish for Haas. I mean, I think Io Komatsu has really just turned them around, or at least that's what it looks like right now. They have just stability and pace over multiple weekends, which is something that we haven't seen from Haas in a really long time. And, I think you said it last week in our podcast is we didn't expect Kevin Magnussen to have another solid weekend, and here he is scoring 6 points. I mean, that's really what Haas needs right now to stay ahead of RB in the constructors standings, and they're delivering. So,
Yeah, surely they'll finish ahead of RB based on how many points are actually available in the midfield and what's going on with RB right now. Surely they're going to finish sixth in the constructors, which is an absolutely mega performance for them. I can't wait to see where they end up next year. Obviously, they have this partnership with Toyota, which isn't like a Toyota's building an engine, but that is a great racing brand that can provide insight to Haas to how to operate as an organization. And so I'm excited to see what comes of that. You've got Esteban Ocon, a proven race winner, Ollie Behrman, an incredible rookie next year. So I'm excited to see what Haas can do in 2025. Shout out to Pierre Gasly. He beat Esteban Ocon pretty comprehensively this weekend. He did it last weekend in Austin, kind of came undone when Alpine gave him like a 40-second pit stop halfway through that race. But he brought home a point this weekend. Good for him. Liam Lawson, we have to talk about him for just a second because I don't know what to make of the kid. I love him. I think he's great. Great personality. Glad he's showing some of it on track. I think he's really quick, but coming together with two drivers this weekend, you could argue that neither of them were really his fault. The Franco Colapinto incident was really just clumsy. The Sergio Perez incident, I think that Sergio forced him off onto the grass. Yes, Liam could have backed out of it a little bit, but where do you expect him to go? I mean, he's 90-degree corner on the grass. Do you expect him just to make a 90-degree turn and keep it on the inside line? Like, so that one's up in the air. But I mean, I think it's great. I'm glad he is going for it, making an impression. We saw Yuki crash in the Saturday and Sunday, so that looks good for Liam. He kind of crashed the car on Sunday, but I don't know if it was his fault. So where do we stand with Liam Lawson? Does he get the V-carb seat next year? Should he get Sergio's seat next year? How have you felt about Liam Lawson since he's returned to the grid?
I felt good about Liam. I think he showed good pace last weekend. Just kind of unfortunate for him the way the race finished. But, this weekend it's a little bit like aggressive, desperate driving. But, I think that's what you want to see, from Liam is, if he's, backing out of these moves and, letting other drivers kind of fly past him, then, I don't know if that's what you want to see. I think it's good that we've seen him be aggressive in defending and overtaking other drivers on the track because that's what, honestly, Red Bull needs in a second driver that Sergio isn't providing right now. And, I think ultimately when it comes down to the incident with him and Sergio, it's like, where do you want him to go? But also, why would you expect him to back out of that move? You can't expect Liam Lawson to back out of that with Sergio Perez right there. And again, I'll say it again, but yeah, people aren't going to move out of the way because it's Sergio's home Grand Prix. So, if that was the case, then Logan Sargent would have won in Miami both years. But obviously that did not happen. So yeah, I've liked what I've seen from Liam. The little obscene gesture he showed to Sergio on the way by. Maybe we could have done without that. But I think that's just the competitive nature of these drivers. We haven't seen anything like that from anybody in a long time, though. But I don't know. I kind of like what we see from Liam. I think he's probably at this point done enough to deserve a seat. It deserved longer than a 6 race contract. I don't know what seat that is yet. Again, we keep saying this stuff about Sergio, but he's still here, So obviously the sponsorships that he brings in speak for him a lot, and the market that he helps provide to Formula One is obviously pretty valuable. So we'll see how that goes, but I mean, I think what I've seen from Liam is mostly good stuff, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean, surely he has to be in contention for that main Red Bull seat, or they would have just announced him as VCarb's 2025 driver when they announced
So
him for this six race stint. So we will see what that means. But I tell you who loved all the crashing this weekend from the Red Bull drivers was Daniel Ricciardo. He's sitting on his couch, loving that, just waiting for a call from Christian. I'm just kidding. That's probably not going to happen.
yeah,
Brandon, who is your top step driver from the weekend, this weekend in Mexico?
my top step driver, I've gone with Charles Leclerc, um, mostly because I know who you've gone with.
We could have
Uh,
gone for the same. You can change it right now. We can go for the same because it's an obvious choice.
Yeah, yeah. I'll officially change. I'll talk briefly about Charles because I think he did have a good weekend, but then I'll officially change my answer to Carlos Sainz. But Charles Leclerc, great weekend. He qualified pretty well. Wasn't too far off of pole. It was really tight there at the top in qualifying. But smart driving from him at the beginning of the race, and took advantage of the Max and Lando drama that was happening. And then he drove a great race the rest of the race. I think his tire wear really hurt him at the end of the Grand Prix, and Lando was able to pass him. But still a podium finish for Ferrari was great. And Carlos Sainz, man, what a weekend! I said last week in the podcast that I was putting all my eggs in the Carlos Sainz basket, and he delivered. He had good performances in practice. Obviously, a great qualifying session to be on pole in Mexico, and then Max overtook him at the beginning, but I think that Ferrari race pace is much better than the Red Bulls right now, and great move to retake the lead, and from there it was never really in doubt. He was in control of his pace in the race pretty much the entire time. Good pit stops from the Ferrari team, so can't say much more. What a day for Carlos.
Yeah, what a day indeed. I can't say much more. Obviously, my top step driver is Carlos Sainz. He had the best weekend of any driver on the grid by far. Got to shout out Kevin Magnussen. Had a great weekend as well. Very consistent, scored a lot of points, was never too far off of the top runner. So great weekend from him. And Charles Leclerc, I think, also had a great weekend, saving that snap from not ending up in the barrier at the end of the Grand Prix. That deserves a shout out. And then being able to go get the fastest lap on the last lap after having that snap, immediately saying, okay, let's think about fastest lap, and then going and getting it, an extra constructor's point for Ferrari. So he had a great weekend as well. But top step driver has to be Carlos Sainz. What an incredible weekend from him. We made some predictions for the Mexican Grand Prix. You talked about putting all your eggs in Carlos Sainz basket, so this just might be a good prediction haul for you. Podium pusher of the weekend, I went for Liam Lawson, which was incorrect.
Yeah, and for me, I went for, let's see where
You went for Max Verstappen, which I'm
I
going to
did
say
go
is
for Max
incorrect as
Verstappen.
well.
Yeah, definitely not. 20 seconds of penalties. I don't think you could qualify podium pusher of the weekend there at all. So
A fairly okay drive to get back to P6, but not podium pusher material at all. Backmarker of the weekend, I went for Kevin Magnussen, and he had his best weekend of the year, so that is incorrect.
yes, I went for Yuki Tsunoda. He had maybe his worst weekend of the year. So a couple of crashes. Obviously, he didn't get more than like a few hundred meters into the race before he was in the barrier, which is unfortunate. But yeah, not a great weekend from Yuki.
Yeah, a few hundred yards. This is an American Formula One podcast. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, keeping your teammate at a Q2 from crashing on Saturday and then crashing on Sunday, not a great weekend from Yuki. Poll predictions. I went for Charles Leclerc, which was incorrect.
But close. And I went for Carlos Sainz, which is awesome. So
Yeah, great for you. Glad you got a point. Third place, I went for Lando Norris. You guessed it. Justin got it wrong.
third place, I went for Charles Leclerc. Got that one right.
Dang it.
So,
Second
thank you.
place, I went for Charles Leclerc. Incorrect.
All right, second place, I went for Max Verstappen, which was incorrect.
First place, I went for Max Verstappen. Stupid, stupid idiot. Incorrect.
I went for Carlos Sainz, so that was a great prediction from me. So
What a weekend from you. My one push and prediction, Franco Colapinto outperforms Alex Albon over the course of the weekend. Yes, I got that right. Alex crashed in practice and the race. So you have to give me that one. You have to.
yeah, I think you deserve it. He came together with Yuki at the beginning, and his race was over before it even really started. Um, Kind of a cool livery that he was running though. So
Yeah, I mean, I did
yeah,
enjoy the Williams livery. It was great. But and you can debate it because Franco didn't have the best qualifying. I think that was more on Williams for keeping him in the pits when track evolution was like a second and a half in that session. But the fact that he didn't put the car on the wall, I'm gonna go with yes on that one.
yeah. I think it was comprehensive enough to say that we'll give you the point.
Yeah, and
And
I left it vague anyways, so I did that on purpose.
that's true. That's true. We got to leave these predictions vague just so that we have, some room for debate, some room for error in there. My one push and prediction was Carlos Sainz finishes P6 or higher in every session, which did happen. I felt that was kind of risky because, with these weekends that aren't sprint weekends, one, kind of session that has even a little bit of rain can mess things up. Track evolution is big. Teams are running different fuel loads, different tire plans, all these different things. Um, but Carlos was on it all weekend, finished P1 in, I think, 3 out of the 5 sessions. So I'll take that one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
great prediction from you. And when I realized that they were doing the Pirelli test this weekend, I was like, surely I might get lucky here. And then he put it P1 by like 1.4 seconds at the beginning of the session. And I was like, dang it. That was my one chance. Gone. Great prediction round from you. You crushed it. The fans at PVK underscore 96 underscore says Max, Lando, and a Ferrari make up the podium. That was incorrect. At Nathan underscore Godfrey underscore 10 said the race would be red flagged, which I kind of thought it would be after that crash with two cars having to repair the barrier, pick up all that debris, but it was incorrect. And then at Biking Dad 2921 said Ferrari would win again, which happened. So great round of predictions all around, especially for you and Biking Dad. Me, I guess I just didn't know wheel this weekend. I'll try again next weekend in Brazil.
Yeah, that's okay. I feel like this is probably my best prediction weekend, so probably won't happen again anytime soon. Alex Albon is probably going to win with both the Mercedes on the podiums next weekend or something crazy like that. But yeah, also both the other fan predictions were very close, very, very close to happening. So it was a good weekend.
Yeah, and obviously we appreciate all of you guys that give us your predictions. You can find those posts on social media, so be sure to go find those and give us your predictions and be a part of the podcast. Brandon, before we get out of here and leave these lovely people, what are your parting podium thoughts from the Mexican Grand Prix?
Man, what a race. Makes me excited for next weekend. Brazil, another unique track, another shorter track. So we'll have cars going pretty fast around Interlagos. It's a sprint weekend, which, if it's anything like Austin, will be very exciting. So
Yeah.
I'm pumped.
Brazil is the perfect track for sprint racing. It's short, there's always action there. I'm pumped for it. The sprint there last year was an incredible. The sprint there has always been an incredible race. Interlagos is, if you had to ask me any track of which track I wanted to be 2 races at in the year, it's Interlagos. So I'm pumped for that. Of course, I have to condition that by saying we have been filled with bangers in 2024. So that would just be a classic, twist of fate for Brazil to stink this year. But I'm not counting on it because Interlagos is one heck of a track, and we will be there to predict it and talk about it because it is going to be an incredible weekend. Thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. Before you go, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, do all of the things. We are so thankful that you watch the show, that you listen to the show. It means so much that you guys are supporting us when we get to do this. It truly is such great fun to get to talk to you guys about Formula One. We will see you later in the week to predict the Brazilian Grand Prix. Thanks for listening. God bless.
See ya.